Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Church Security Answer Man. I'm glad you're here today. Buddy is back with us with some great information. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Life's good, man.
Buddy sent over some great information points and things that we really need to discuss these days, I think. So let's get to it. So do we really need church security? And this goes into other things like you're going to mention. This goes into some other questions as well, some things that you're going through. So what's going on?
Well, remember we did a video a few weeks ago talking about the safety film on the entrances for the doors and the windows. And so now we're having to take that to a vote to the church, get approval on that. We kind of do things the old-fashioned way at our church.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, I got thinking about this, and I know some churches might be struggling to get a safety team going and might find resistance to it. And if you simply start out with something like the security film, it might be a segue and get people thinking about the need for church security. So it might be a good tool for you to use that could be helpful to you at the church. Well, I started out with a memo that I sent to all of our team members just to motivate them. And it gave them some statistics about church violence and the increase of it. And why the importance to have the film on the windows. And what we're doing with the 2 layers of film, it gives us 2 minutes of time to prepare for that. That's a huge window when you're talking about, and it's even a deterrent for someone who might be trying to break in.
Yeah, so that's good. And I'll link for anybody watching, I'll link in the description back to that conversation you and I had on that window film as well, because that was a good one.
Do we really need church security? Well, of course, Joe and I both think, yes, you do need church security. And there's a lot of obvious reasons that are out there that we don't need to go into now. But, some churches are going to say, well, we've never had this before. Why do we need it now? And it's because of the increase of violence. Joe, you get a lot of information about increased violence in churches. And what are some of those things that you're hearing out there about violence against churches?
Yeah, I mean, we've done the studies recently. We talked about the arsons, vandalism is terrible these days, as well against the churches. Just lots of little things going on, much less the bigger stuff. That we're hearing of people attempting to get into churches and create violence or those kind of things. So there is a lot of stuff, as this study that you brought to our attention, or that you're bringing to our attention, shows us. So,
violence was the number one problem with churches, and the vandalism was the problem, was number one. And vandalism at churches, and I think that's probably going to increase with the change in our economy and people being out of work and just trying to struggle to get by. And those with not real good values and morals might be trying to steal things from church and go sell it to get some cash. So, those acts of violence could be something that, especially with the safety film, could stop that or slow it down greatly. But a lot of times our churches are just not familiar with what's going on in the church community as far as safety and what our needs are. And there's a few other points there. This came from the Family Research Council. It was a 6-year study. And what they found in the first quarter of this year was that hostility against churches was 3 times greater than it was the same quarter last year. So that says a lot about about our need for safety at church, and things like the safety film, and put a team together to keep an eye out on what's going on around the church and just to keep people safe.
Yeah, for sure.
So there were 69 acts of violence against the church in the first quarter, and here's a list of the problems that were number 1 right through 5 was the vandalism, arson. We're seeing a lot of arson in the Catholic churches taking place, and then some were gun related, and then the bomb threats. We've had a bomb threat at our church, and then assaults, and those decrease as they go down. But all of these are things that we need to be concerned about and take a look at. How are we going to deal with them? And individually, how are we going to deal with them as our team? Who's going to be responsible? And you have media issues, because sometimes media shows up to see what's going on. You have to have someone to represent the church. And but I use those points right there with our team just to give them an example of what's going on in the community, and thank them for their hard work, that they are valuable, because everybody on our team serves a different role, but they all work together. and as a unit. And so when we work together, we can get around some of these problems that take place.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great study that you're bringing to our attention because of like what you're saying. I mean, this is great, useful if you're trying to sell on a project to a church board, or you're trying to sell on a church security team, or you're trying to motivate your team. This is just good all around information for us to keep in our pockets and our ideas of what we can use to keep things rolling, you know. And then here, buddy, I've got the comparison that they were making in that study, the hostility against the churches in comparison to the first quarter of 2023. These were their numbers, and it obviously shows that obviously 2020, where I think most everybody was probably closed. There was a few that were not closed, but a lot of churches were. So, and then you just look at the increase. And this is just for the first quarter of these years. So it's quite an increase this year.
You know, one of the things that I just now thought about was that the violence against the church a lot of time is brought on by just Satan working in the lives of people. We see how our nation is falling spiritually, and the values that we have are not what they were several years ago. And Christianity is looked down on. We're starting to see some persecution among the church, especially in Canada, is really bad about persecuting the churches. And I think we're going to start seeing that here. And so that spreads throughout the communities, not just politically, but with individuals. It spreads through the community. And so that's something that we need to be concerned about and keep an eye out for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase in everything. So excellent information, buddy. Anything else to add to this?
No, I think we're pretty good.
You know, and I think on that spiritual aspect, we don't talk about that stuff too much on this channel, but you're definitely right. I mean, this is some serious spiritual warfare going on, and as we know is going to happen. So anyway, well, I appreciate you, buddy, and I appreciate you bringing us some more good information that we can use for so many aspects here relative to this topic. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and then take a look at this next video as the next step in your watching our materials for church security. Thank you.